So, back again, and this time with a slightly more controversial subject, the place of Dungeons and Dragons, and more specifically 5e in the beginner community for tabletop role-playing games. Despite what some parts of the OSR community would have you believe, Dungeons and Dragons has a lot going for it as a starting point for role players. So let's start with the positives. First, availability. The game is available from everywhere, from small hobby stores to big chain bookstores. Let's face it, it's a massive title. Even people who don't play role-playing games have heard of Dungeons & Dragons. More people play Dungeons & Dragons than any other role-playing game in the world. And so that availability and presence makes it easier for you to find new players, whether it be in your local game store or on Roll20 or something like that, as online play has become bigger and bigger, especially given the circumstances that we're currently living in. Next, there's the rules. The rules to Dungeons & Dragons are relatively simple, despite what some people may believe. It is essentially a D20 plus a single number, and most people can do that level of maths. Yes, there may be simpler systems out there, but it's not really that complex, and the abilities, because of the level-based system, are drip-fed to you. So you're not getting overwhelmed by new abilities every time you level up. It's so easy to grasp that even the newest player will be rolling those crits in no time at all. Lastly, we have third-party support. There are a plethora of options to change your game, whether it be to dark fantasy, comic book heroes, or horror. When you have publishers like Kobold Press, Goodman Games, or even the individual creators that run the DM's Guild, you can find something to change the game to fit exactly how you want to play it. However, there are some negatives. To begin with, it is the only game that some players will ever play. They will start with the 5e rule set and will never move beyond it. It's not that other systems are too complicated for them to learn. It's that 5e Dungeons and Dragons has such a grip on the overall market that a lot of players will see no value in moving away from that simple rule set. Because people don't move away from the rule set, the only part of the role-playing community that grows because of this is that of Dungeons and Dragons. There is a drip feed out to other role-playing systems, but mostly that will be players who have decided to try something new, try to branch out, and will venture into that in another point. The Dungeons and Dragons community itself can actually be quite closed off to looking into other systems. If you look over the community, especially on Twitter and Reddit, there are a lot of players who don't want to learn a new system at all. The actual play scene feeds into this thinking. They want their streams to be popular, so they play the biggest game. And the people that are watching that, whether they be current players of 5e or players investigating role-playing for the first time, are more likely to stick with a game that they are constantly being fed. And so you end up in this kind of cycle that perpetuates itself. Next, the sheer amount of content out there can be overwhelming. What do you need as a starting player? What's absolutely necessary for you to begin playing role-playing games? As soon as you start thinking about trying anything outside of the official material, you're entering into a literal minefield. That leads us to 5e conversions of every setting and every game that you've ever played. They keep companies afloat, and that's important. But do we need one for every single game that's out there? You only have to look at the vitriolic reaction to Cubicle 7's Doctors and Daleks, the 5e conversion of their Doctor Who role-playing game, to see how far some people are prepared to take their hatred for the system. Is it necessary? No, you can just vote with your money and not buy it. And I think, on the whole, that would be the best reaction to these games. Lastly, is the shortcoming of the rules. 5e is at its best when it's played the way it's designed, which is a heroic fantasy game. But that means that if you want a different style of game using those rules, you're stitching in an awful lot of extra mechanics, at which point you'd almost be better learning another system anyway. I understand that not everybody likes to learn new mechanics, but if you've added an extra book effectively on top of the core 3 for 5e, then you are better, in my opinion, learning another system. Go and find something which does exactly what you are trying to run and is physically designed from the ground up to cope with it, rather than trying to shoehorn those rules into Dungeons and Dragons. That's all for now, but let's continue the discussion in the comments, or you can reach out to me on social media. My links will be in the description below. Thanks for watching. Click like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Bye.